Hey everybody, Maria Patrick here, health coach, Qigong instructor, and host of the Wishing You Well podcast. Today I am back with you launching season 5 of the podcast, and I am welcoming listeners across the globe. I'm happy to have you with us, Panama, Ukraine, France, and Iran. Welcome to the Wishing You Well community. I come to you as often as I can to break down the health headlines and wellness news that we can use so that you don't have to do so. Today, I'm asking you to put down the cheese puffs and the goldfish and the other ultra-processed foods and snacks that you think are convenient and easy and fueling you. And it's not just because of the recent headlines that are talking about this new phenomenon known as shrinkflation. Yes, shrinkflation is very real. Popular snacks that have been quietly shrinking in size, so the packaging is getting smaller, or the content inside the packages are far less than it used to be, but the prices have either stayed the same or have gone up. So you're not just imagining this. But it's not just because of that. It's because these ultra-processed foods are, while convenient, are in actuality harming your health. So before you click off listening because you're afraid that I'm coming after your Oreos and your cheese puffs, if I told you that you were doing something every day that was linked to increased risk of premature death, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, mental health disorders, obesity, and sleep problems, wouldn't you want to know what that is? So that's what we're going to do together today. We're going to inform ourselves so that we can make better, healthier choices. Remember, our goal is to live longer, stronger, healthier, better lives. So I get it. I truly do. Our lives are busy. You're running here and there. You're doing so much for so many people, and that doesn't leave you a lot of time for shopping and prepping and cooking elaborate meals. What if I told you that it's simpler than we think? I wish that I could come over and cook for each and every one of my listeners. I would if I could. It's actually a dream of mine. But since that can't happen, let's take a deep dive on what exactly the food industry is doing to our snacks and our pre-made, ready-to-eat meals, these ultra-processed foods. So this is what I want you to think about. It's things like deli meat and microwavable dinners. It's chips. It's granola bars. It's pre-packaged, ready-to-eat meals. These things typically have long ingredient lists. It's really what I want us to focus on, if you're not already doing so, is to take the time to look at the labels. Because what you may find, it's not going to surprise you when you really read it, is that in order to keep these foods shelf stable, lots of additives have been put into the foods. Preservatives, oil, sugar, salt, coloring, flavoring. You're going to do yourself and those you love a favor if you can cut these things out of your diet as much as possible and replace them with less processed options, preferably whole foods, a whole foods diet. Whole foods is not just the name of a grocery store. For people on the run, ultra-processed food may become their go-to. They're sacrificing nutrition in order to get the convenience of a go-to diet. And while it may be convenient to consume ultra-processed foods, if you do this on a regular basis, the risks of the diseases that I mentioned are going to increase for you. It might be hard to tell these foods ultra-processed from whole foods, because if you're in the freezer aisle and you're buying frozen vegetables, unless you read the label, you may think you're getting just the vegetable itself. When you're buying a box or a bag of Goldfish crackers and you're captured, like I am, my attention is grabbed by words like whole grains and natural, you may be confused into thinking that you're eating something that is whole foods, that they've just put it in a form that's easy for you to carry and eat. And we're tricked into thinking, oh, we're going to be taking in less calories because they've given us a small portion. And we are disregarding the fact that large amounts of sugar and salt may have been added to the box or the bag. So think about certain foods like buying a carton of eggs that you can, and I know eggs are expensive now, that you can go home and prepare and turn into any type of a meal or snack. That's the whole food. But when you go to the freezer aisle and you buy a frozen egg patty, it's not just the egg that's been frozen. They've added in a lot of other items into that patty to make it shelf stable, last for a long time. Think about ice creams, sodas, energy and sports drinks, soups that aren't made homemade like your grandmother used to make, but ones that are canned and packaged or dehydrated. When you package up meat, soups, seafood, vegetables, breads, buns, cereals, breakfast bars, meal replacement shakes, like the one that I had for years that rhymes with gym and ends with fast. Those beverages and foods are ultra processed. The preservatives that have been added to these foods to enhance the shelf life include things like chemicals and unhealthy fats and sodium. These processed foods are less refined and have more additives, which make them much less healthier than the whole food versions of these foods. So what are the consequences of eating this way? The stakes are very high because the statistics show now that despite the shrinking quantity in the snack bags and boxes and the rising prices, and while sales are down somewhat, that 57% of adults are still getting their calorie intake in a day from ultra-processed foods. And what's even worse than that is that the statistic is higher in children, that it's almost 70% of daily calories coming from ultra-processed foods for children, which means that instead of having the nutritional benefits of the original whole foods, which were filled with fiber and phytonutrients and vitamins, they're being packed with things like salt and fat and sugar, which we know when we take them in excess are not great for our health. The foods are being designed in a way to make them taste good and stay fresh for a long time and to make them very tempting for us to buy. The United States Department of Agriculture defines processed food as any food that has its original state changed before it reaches the consumers. And that includes freezing, dicing, or juicing. So believe it or not, baby carrots are an example of a processed food because they're not grown that way. They have to be processed to make them the size that is appealing to us as a snack food. So this is one example where we are much better off health-wise of buying the carrots and cutting them up, peeling them and cutting them into small snack sizes for ourselves and for our children. So when you think about these statistics, it makes sense why there's an increase, it's on the rise now, of obesity and type 2 diabetes and other problems, health problems that take us beyond weight gain. We're talking about problems for our health that could limit the lifespan. So when you are shopping and you're grabbing those packaged snacks, the prepared breakfast cereals, the sugary beverages, it makes sense to take some time to look at the nutrition label, because if we get sucked in by the calories, saying, oh, something's only 100 calories or less than 100 calories, we have to remember that not all calories are created equal. And when you flip over the bag or the box or the bottle, and you see the amount of added fat and sugar that are in there, that you're ending up with something that is much more calorie dense than most whole foods. Think about an apple itself has a lot more fiber and less sugar and less calories than an apple muffin, for instance. We need to reevaluate what is considered healthy. And when you make whole food choices, you are making a large difference with even just some small effort. When you choose to have a salad that you make yourself and add in a healthy protein, and you use a salad dressing that is derived from a healthy oil like olive oil, you are not having something that's processed. You're having a home prepared meal that, if you do so in advance, you now have a meal to take with you on the go. Food prep can be your solution to the ultra-processed food problem that we are uncovering from the foods that are accessible and available to us in the grocery store. So if you do your grocery shopping, whether you're in the store yourself or you have your food delivered, and you buy things like fresh fruits and vegetables and things, remember to choose things that don't have labels, like whole grains that are intact, and vegetables and fruit, whether they're frozen or fresh, beans, whether they're canned or dried, fish, whether they're canned or fresh, proteins that you can buy that are pre-grilled with no additives, or you can take the time to just grill something up in advance, cook something up in advance, and then set yourself up for success by putting together and doing some meal planning, meal prepping, and putting together small packages of things that you can grab when you're on the go. Another tip, a really great trick, is to shop the perimeter of the grocery store. This is wonderful unless your grocery store on the perimeter has the bakery aisle. You can really want to skip over that. But on the perimeter of most grocery stores is where they have the fresh items, the fresh fruits, the fresh vegetables, the healthy proteins, and the dairy aisle. And even in the dairy aisle, if you are dairy free, you can make choices that are non-dairy, which is one of the things that is a priority to my family and myself. So while you can think to yourself that it's not practical or possible for you to eliminate every processed or ultra-processed food, this is the time to start thinking about where you can start making changes. And even these small changes can make benefits for your health. You want to start small. So whatever is your habit, if you have an unhealthy food choice that you're eating on a regular basis, that should be the thing that you start with first. And I will tell you towards the end of this podcast what it is for me that I will be replacing. Think about the fact that checkout counters can really be a hazard for most of us, because that's where it's like having a vending machine right in your family room, because they place all the very convenient unhealthy foods like the candy bars and the other junk foods right there as you're checking out. And if you're in a long line, guess what? A lot of that junk ends up in your cart, and then it ends up in your home, and then it ends up inside of you. So I entitled this podcast, Put Down the Cheese Puffs and the Goldfish, because I know that those are two snacks that are very, very popular and that we tend to grab and eat, and unless they're prepackaged, if you're just eating out of a large bag or a large box, we're not even taking the time to portion these things out. So here's the true confession time. For me, it's popcorn. You know the one. The name even makes you feel like you've made a smart choice or a skinny choice. Well, guess what? While the front of the packaging makes it seem like I can do no wrong with my smart, skinny choice, and believe me, the words are very enticing, all natural, cholesterol free, zero trans fat, preservative free, dairy free, peanut free, tree nut free, gluten free, non GMO, a good source of fiber. It even goes so far as to say, and delicious. Well, till you flip the bag over to the other side, that's when you realize that it's made with dangerous seed oils like corn and canola, which are highly inflammatory, and that one little bag, while gluten-free and non-GMO, contains more sodium than I should be taking in while I'm sitting down after dinner watching The Voice. So I will be breaking up with my smart and skinny choice, and I'm counting on the fact that I will feel better and that I will be practicing what I'm preaching. I want you to let me know what you're going to be getting rid of. I want to hear all about it. What are you going to be breaking up with? Is it the Goldfish? Is it the smart and skinny popcorn? Is it the cheese puffs? I want to hear your plan, what you're going to replace it with. And in the meantime, I'm going to be on the lookout for more news that we can use when it comes to living healthier, longer, stronger, and better lives. Our very best lives. Until next time, I am wishing you well.